This is always a great session. Every conference that we have with Teachers of the Year to give their in-class real-world perspective on that. And I'll turn it over to Pam. Pam, the floor is yours.
Kevin, thank you so much. I am so excited to get started. In fact, I want to let you know how I'm feeling right now. So hopefully you'll see that I'm sharing my smiley face, right? I've been listening to all the sessions and I think that they have gone tremendously. So we are excited to have our panelists start our discussions. And so what I want to do is, because this is not about me by no means, it is all about listening to and engaging with our teachers from across the state, who I think will be very representative of probably a lot of you in your areas. But I want to learn from them, and I want you to learn from them as well. So to kick this off, I think we'll first start off with introductions. And so I will ask for each of the panelists, and just so we're not confused, I'll just go ahead and call you by name. But I'll ask for each of the panelists, if you could please then introduce yourself, provide your name, your school, your location, a little background about yourself. But also, the first question, I do want you to answer this first question at the same time. How are you doing? I want to know how each of you are doing right now. And let's start off with, if you guys are okay, let's start off with Leah. Leah, can you start today?
Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here today. My name is Leah Porter. I am the Michigan Teacher of the Year and the Region 6 Teacher of the Year for the state of Michigan. And I have been teaching for the last 16 years in Holt Public Schools, which is a suburb of Lansing area. And I have taught kindergarten for 15 years and just this year have transitioned to teaching third grade. So it has been kind of a whirlwind these last couple of months. And I guess that kind of answers how I'm doing. Totally overwhelmed and just facing new challenges every day, trying to keep a very positive attitude and also just learning a tremendous amount, both as a new third grade teacher and as Teacher of the Year.
Thanks, Leah. Hey, let's go to Kacie.
Hi, my name is Kacie Hook. This is my 7th year teaching. I teach in Roscommon Middle School through Roscommon Area Public Schools. We are right next door is Higgins Lake. It's in our backyard, one of the most beautiful lakes in the state. And I teach 6th and 7th grade English as well as real world skills. I also coach in my district for middle school track and volleyball. How I'm feeling, I'm actually really excited. This is my 4th time seeing Leah in the past 2 weeks, 3 times in person, once virtually. And then we also got to meet as the Michigan Teacher Leadership Advisory Council this past week as well. So I am excited. I have loved the collaboration that I have been able to have these past 2 weeks.
Tremendous, thank you. Heather, how about you?
Hello, I'm Heather French. I am the Region 1 Teacher of the Year. I teach at Lakeland and Hubble Schools in the UP. I teach 7th and 10th grade English, as well as young 5s through 12th grade art. Honestly, I'm feeling great. It's been a good school year, been busy and learning new things, so I'm loving it.
Thanks, Heather. Janet, how about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing great today. Thank you. I'm Janet Swarthout. I am the Region 5 Teacher of the Year, and I'm from Caro High School at Caro, Michigan, in the middle of the thumb. And I'm actually in front of some students right now who are in my classroom watching me display my oral communication skills while they watch me do this. So, and I may, some of your questions on bullying, I might just refer to some of them and get some input from them as well. I'm in the midst of a musical we're 3 weeks out, so things are a little hectic around here, but gotta love our jobs.
Thank you, love that, love that. And Bethany, last but not least, tell us
Hi.
about yourself.
Hi, I'm Beth Bonk, and I teach in Ypsilanti, Michigan, in a county consortium, a Washtenaw County Consortium building. And we're an IB, International Baccalaureate building, and I teach middle school, grades 6 through 8, language arts. This is my 41st year of teaching. Janet and I have been around the block and the moon and the sun and every place else. And I'm doing great. I'm getting my legs underneath me after being off in the nether world for a couple years, and we are all learning how to do new things again, and we're just getting through and learning how to be teachers again in the real world. What do we say? IRL.
I love that. And actually, that's perfect, because that leads wonderfully into my first question that I wanted to ask, which is, because it's been kind of an interesting couple of years almost now, right? And so, and then especially with this dark cloud of bullying over our heads, and doesn't seem to go away, and it's getting darker, and in some cases even larger. But from your perspective, from your schools, from what you guys are seeing, what has changed over the past couple of years? What have been the struggles with regards to bullying in your schools, in your areas? And I'll just let you guys just kind of jump in and respond.
So I am working on, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Bethany.
Oh, I was just going to say that because I've been doing this a long time, I can see that there have been real changes from it used to be like in the classroom, in the hallways, in the cafeteria. And yes, we have that. But now it's kind of starting online. It's starting on TikTok or Instagram or someplace else. And all of those things are being brought into the schools. Everybody has their phone, and they've got phones that they're passing all of these little videos that they've taken. So nothing seems to be sacred anymore. And we have to really, I just think that we need to really hone in on the SEL and make sure that our students are aware of who they are and where they stand, so that they can stand up to this kind of always being in the spotlight. And no matter where you are, being wary of, you could be videotaped, you could be, your words could be used against you, because somebody always has a camera. And I think that has instigated an awful lot more than we ever had in the past.
Heather, did you want to? Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to see if Heather had something to add to that, and then we'll go to you, Janet.
Mine kind of goes in line with what Beth was saying. SEL. At the end of last school year, I posed a survey to my students. And the nice thing about my situation is I have young 5th through 12th grade. So I see everybody. And I asked them, do you feel like you have an adult in the building that you can go to? Somebody that you could ask a question if you needed something? Do you have a person, And it could be anyone. It could be someone in the lunchroom, janitor, bus driver, absolutely anybody. The wonderful thing, 80% of my students said they had a person. Great. My concern is that 20% that felt like they didn't have anybody. So now my question is, how do we as educators or people within the school building at all help connect with that other 20% of students? How do we make them feel included? Because I feel like 9 times out of 10, the students that are struggling the most and don't have the connection are the ones that are probably dealing with the most bullying issues. So, how do we build that relationship with them? So it was really interesting insight, getting to see exactly what the kids say in an anonymous setting. They knew the only person that was going to see it was me and read your thoughts and comments. So I feel like they were really honest and forthright, and it was eye-opening.
I think having been virtual for a year and a half, students sometimes forgot they didn't get to see each other as frequently, or when we came back, we were in the 2-1-2 situation where we had limited amount of students in the building and maybe their friends weren't there. And we were socially distanced and they didn't have as many opportunities to communicate with each other and build relationships with each other. And as a result, now that we're all back in the building and we're all 30 some kids in a classroom, it's leading to some behavior issues that we probably didn't have quite as frequently in the past, because they have not learned how, or they've forgotten how to behave in the classroom. And that leads to them feeling more free to say things that maybe they wouldn't have said before. So pandemics definitely had an impact on our bullying.
Yeah, I think about what Glenn stated this morning, where he talked about how students are at home more. And we all have known for a long time that home life's for everyone, it's not ideal. And I think that has increased trauma. And I mean, sometimes we think this pandemic is trauma. It's something where kids are not in the classroom. They're not getting the correct socialization. They're being deprived some of food, electricity, all of these basic needs because of the pandemic. And when trauma occurs, we normally see bullying kind of come in with that, because a lot of times kids aren't taught how to deal with trauma. And that's why, as the other RTOYs have said, that social emotional learning is such a huge and important piece in helping students learn how to handle and self-manage what is going on in their lives, as well as reaching out for support from others and getting that care. Because without that, I mean, we're going to continue to see this pattern. So putting relationships first, really focusing on social emotional learning. I mean, we had trauma come out of the pandemic, but we have seen such a huge surge in the understanding and growth and learning and importance of social emotional learning within our school system. So we got some negatives, but we also got some positives as well.
You know, Pam, listening to all of these regional teachers, just like what an amazing group that we have across the state here. I echo all of what my colleagues have stated, and, you know, looking at it from a lens of an early elementary classroom and being in an elementary building on a daily basis, you know, we have seen maturity gaps immensely in kids, you know, students that left as middle first graders, now in my third grade classroom, many of them not having been in a school environment since, you know, March of 2020. And so we're seeing a lot of those gaps. One of the things that I think is so critical when I'm hearing about all this SEL is intentionality, and how you're building you know, staff is working on that as a team to have commonality across classrooms. So every student's getting the opportunities to have social emotional lessons and experiences, and how to navigate their feelings, and being very intentional on how you're helping to support kids through those challenging times. As Kacie and many of the others have talked about, that trauma and how often there then large scale behaviors come out in the building as a kind of a trigger or a key that something else is going on in the home, and that we can't just assume that parents are able to help develop their children's social emotional skills. Many just can't, or you know, with a myriad of reasons why. And so, you know, as a building community, as a classroom community, as an individual teacher, it is our, you know, greatest responsibility to focus in on that social emotional learning in order for those students to be able to begin learning academically. We can't get there if we don't have those other pieces in place.
You know, as you guys have been talking, questions are coming in, and so I want to make sure that we touch on them. So regardless of what I've written down, I want to get to questions from those that are attending, which is wonderful. And so the first question I have is, or one of the questions I have, excuse me, is, did your schools do anything to support educators' social emotional needs upon returning this year? And if so, what? And if not, do you think it would have been beneficial to the staff?
I can start this one off, Pam. So I think something that I have heard, as we've discussed with my colleagues here as well, is giving grace. I've heard a lot of opportunities where grace has been given by districts, having that understanding of kids coming maybe in and out of the classroom because of quarantines or different absences occurring, having that grace of, we are also dealing with this secondary or tertiary trauma from our students as well, and giving us opportunities to share failures and successes, and just being more open and understanding that we are also going through something along with the kids in our district. And I think it has to be beneficial for all districts to do this. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see teachers leaving the profession. So if districts aren't, I plead with them to start thinking about your teachers' social emotional health and the trauma that they have experienced through all of this as well, because we have to be healthy and happy to best help our students in any capacity.
Something that my school has done is we usually have our professional learning, which would be staff meetings, but we do professional learning in lieu of staff meetings. But we've cut it down from biweekly to once a month, and giving a lot more time for teachers to grade, giving grading days to teachers, we have people we hire in the building to work as, we call them grads, but they would sub in the classroom, so that we can take a grading day when we need it, because we know that the amount of work that we have to do with students is really keeping us away from just the nitpicky work that also has to be done. And we also have, if we do contract COVID, or a student is out, or we have to be out, they are testing in the school, and they are not taking our days if we have to be out with COVID. Everything that they're doing, they're really looking at it from a lens of, what can we do for you that's going to make your life easier? The bottom line is, we still have 32 kids in the classroom. We're still trying to distance them. We're still trying to do all of these things. And so there may be things that are just making our districts powerless, but at the same time, the expectation is not there that we do business as usual. And I think that the person that needs to give us the grace the most is not our districts, but ourselves, because we are all like such high achievers that we're forgetting that we need to be the ones to say, hey, it's okay if I leave school before 5 o'clock today. It's okay if these assessments don't get graded for 2 weeks. It's okay if I only do 2 assessments or 2 summative assessments instead of 4. It's not going to hurt anybody. And so we just need to really think about giving ourselves the permission that is being granted to us, because teachers are afraid to take it. They kind of think, is this real? Yes, our administrators saying do this, but in the past they've said do it, but it hasn't always been for real. And I do think that now it is for real, and we need to take advantage of that.
I think that is awesome, Beth, that your school's doing that for you, but I don't think every district does that. I know that that is not happening in my district. We are back business as usual, and we are expected to follow everything just as it was in the past. So I'm quite envious of you. I can't imagine having a day where we were allowed to actually grade and have that grace. That would be amazing. So kudos to your district.
Well, and I would say too, Janet, I was listening to that in envy as well. And also knowing that not only are teachers feeling so much pressure because of the transition back, but we're not getting any sort of relief either beyond our districts at the state and the national level. And, when we have standardized testing and we have evaluations connected to that standardized testing, and we are facing some of the largest learning ranges in our classrooms that I've ever witnessed in 16 years of teaching, the stress is real, and it is very difficult to find that balance when you see the level of need and the expectations and everything that we know is part of the systems of the state of Michigan and beyond in terms of the education of students and of evaluations of teachers.
Well, I think that just brings up that great point that districts can only do so much.
Mhm.
I mean, they can help us as much as they can, but at some point their hands are tied as well. And they are taking direction from our state legislation and what is being required. And as Leah said, all of those things, and as others have said, we're expected to go back to normal and expected to make these great gains. And that is that extra level of stress. So yes, districts should uplift and alleviate as much as they can, but at the same time, they also have to follow the expectations that are placed upon them as well.
Thanks, guys. You know, we've gotten a couple of questions that are kind of in the same line. I want to ask both of these questions together because it really talks about the additional role that you have had to take on because of the pandemic, quite honestly. And I think these are important that we address this as well. So the first one is from Decca from Detroit, wants to know, how are you supporting students who you've lost in the pandemic? We have so many kids who lost parents or grandparents in the pandemic, who lost their financial footing, their families, etc. Sometimes it's just overwhelming. And then Julie wants to know, and how are you handling parents this year? It feels like any of the lines that remain have been erased. We have parents asking us constantly about our lesson plans, our COVID precautions, what we are teaching, and second guessing us all the time. It makes me tired. What are your thoughts on those?
I'll start with this. You know, one of the things that I was hearing in the last part of that question, and there were so many there, so I'm just going to address the first one about the pressures that teachers are feeling with parents pushing back on them, is that what I think, you know, when I hear that and I see it and I know that it's happening, you know, all over our state and all over the country, is that, you know, we really need to work as a collective group, and I mean this outside of teachers, to trust our systems of education and honor the teachers that we have. Because, you know, when you hear those pressures, you can see just from those questions why people get to this point of frustration where they're leaving the profession. Because, you know, we don't go into we don't question all doctors on things, right? Like, the teaching profession itself has already been under so much scrutiny over the last decade or more. And, you know, now with the rise with the divisiveness that our country is facing in so many different topics, it just seems like everything is so polarized. But, you know, when I hear that, what I think is what we need to work on so much is like getting back to what is best for kids, and knowing that that the parents, we know what's best for kids, their own children, but that teachers also do as well. And that we are working tirelessly to do that for students. And, you know, and I don't know if I necessarily have the answer to that question, but I know that's something that so many of us are feeling, and know that when I hear that, it's that we need that larger scale, like collective unity, and the fact that, you know, if you're in this profession, that teachers want to do the best learning, the best instruction they can for kids, and to have that, you know, sense of understanding and open-mindedness to understand that teachers are doing their best and want what's best for their kids.
And I think our response to the social emotional learning that schools have come up, it kind of addresses these students who've had such major losses. I know in our high school, we have what's called our tiger dens. That's our mascot, and every teacher has 18 to 20 students that we meet with 2 times a week for 20 minutes. And we go through social emotional activities with them to try to help them reconnect with each other, to deal with the things that they're going through, and to touch base with those feelings that they're experiencing from the trauma.
You know, to add on to that first question about students feeling lost in such great ways, I know our district has pulled in a lot of outside counseling. We are blessed enough to have a school-based health clinic with a counselor where we can refer cases. But it also, I mean, we're tying so much of education to also mental health, which is awesome. But we have to realize that our community mental health organization is so overworked and so overrun. And so many of our students who need services are not able to get them because we are just lacking in all of these ways. So yes, it is so important for us as teachers and districts to implement building relationships that serve our students, that implement teaching them about how to grieve and their social emotional learning. And it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have these negative feelings, but this is how we can manage them. These are ways that we can access the help that we need, even when it's not always there. And then to add on to Leah's point about parents, I think it's opened a door for a lot of different ways. We as teachers have been able to see into our families' lives due to the pandemic greater than we have before. But they've also been able to see into our lives greater than they've had before. They were learning along with their students at home for a year plus. So they've got to see firsthand our lessons. And I think a lot of parents their concern comes from care and worry and anxiety, just as we are feeling. But I think it goes deeper to, as what Leah said, in our profession is not always respected. And we need to collectively, as a nation, get back to teachers are professionals. We have gone to school and have to continue to go to school to improve our craft. So please trust that we are trying to do the best for each and every child in our classroom, and give leniency and grace to all parties involved.
One thing I would like to add, Leah and I talked about at our state board meeting in September, was empowering our younger students to have a voice to their feelings, and seeing that learning gap at this point. The wonderful thing about my situation, I've been teaching English for 13 years and I did an additional endorsement of the art. And this is the second year I've been doing that. So my go-to lean here has been books, obviously, especially with the elementary kids, because my jam has been 7th through 12th grade. So I explained to them, Miss French teaches English too, and that's why we read so many books. But because of some of my colleagues and their suggestions, I have had some wonderful books that help give kids a label for what they're feeling. And I think being able to understand some of the emotions that they're feeling and cope with some of the things that they are now dealing with that they've never had to deal with before is really important. And being able to give that some sort of specific label rather than I feel confused or mixed up, you know what I mean? So empowering our students to really give themselves a voice, something I've been trying to do through English and art. So a lot of stuff happens in the classroom that's helping to develop those things. But like Leah said, we're a little behind. We're playing catch up, but we'll get everybody there.
And I hate to jump in and say this because it probably is going to make people unhappy with my school again. But being a choice school, we have a lot more freedoms. And we have taken, one of the things we took from virtual is that our Wednesdays are now used as time for students to make up any work that they need to do, for teachers to meet in office hours with students, for SEL learning, for all these things that they need that they can't get at home, so that parents don't have to do all of that. So we are using Wednesdays as this like flex day that really is helping students to keep on track. I don't know if you got any of that because I seem to be frozen.
You're good.
No, you're fine. You came through great, Beth. Thank you. You know, as I look at our time, and I want to give it, so many more questions are coming in, but I really want to make sure that I end on a very positive, very thought-provoking point. So I do want to ask this one question for each of you. And this reflects back to our slate of speakers, and particularly the speaker about kindness, the speakers on kindness. I think it'd be wonderful to hear if you could tell us about an act of kindness that you've seen between students or even between the teachers. that have really inspired you? And I think what a great way to kind of end our session, if you could share those thoughts and acts of kindness that you've witnessed or maybe participated in yourself.
Pam, so in our morning meetings, just a couple weeks ago, I posed this very question to my class, a moment of deep kindness that you have felt or you have received. And the one I used as my model is actually one with my own colleagues and the level of kindness that they showed upon me when I broke my ankle. So I broke my ankle in a meeting and was on crutches for 5 weeks. And I will tell you, teaching kindergartners on crutches for 5 weeks is no, pretty insane task, but it was in the middle of winter. And I had 2 different teachers in my building. One, his name was Mr. Green. He was outside at 7:45 in my building every day. The entire 5 weeks I was on those crutches, and he waited for me to come up. He would get me out of my car. He'd get me in the building safely. He'd park my car. He'd bring all my materials in. He did that for me for 5 weeks. And then at the end of the day, Mr. Adams, another one of our teachers, took all my things out, brought my car up, and they took care of me those 5 weeks just to make sure that I could get out safely each day. But, it's those little acts of kindness that are bestowed upon people that can make the most difference. And for me, that is one of the most beautiful ones that I've ever had. So.
Thanks, Leah.
So a few years ago, I had a student who had parents who were in the military, and he chose out of the goodness of his own heart, this was after a food drive before Christmas, he wanted to send care packages to her platoon while they were overseas, and asked of my help to kind of communicate that out school-wide. And it was just this one little idea that my student had, and it turned into the entire community coming together and providing things for these care packages for his, I believe it was a parent in this platoon and everyone that was there. And the cards that we got back from the soldiers who were serving overseas were just incredible. And to see how this one idea could expand into this community project and have all of these other students also affected, it kind of spread through the rest of the building and school year, where we continued to do small little things like that, whether it was a soup kitchen drive or things of that nature that really just inspired me. Like for a student, for a 5th grade student to come up and want to do that and just ask me to help plan was just, it was huge.
Thanks, Kacie.
I have a deaf student, and it's really difficult. And the students who sit around her have taken it upon themselves to make sure that we always have our pen turned on and make sure that that she can always hear. And I notice that every time I'm talking, one of them will lean over to her just to be sure that she is hearing everything okay. And they will give me the sign so she doesn't have to. And they're just all like gathering around her just to make sure that she has what she needs to be successful in the classroom. And she didn't ask them to do that, and I didn't ask them, but it's just so nice that they are taking care of somebody that they know will not be able to succeed if she doesn't have what she needs. So it's just beautiful to see.
Great, thanks.
I'm going to share.
Yes,
Because I got these today, and this is from an elementary principal. And merely because I helped her out with something so small and minute with my drama club. And I cannot believe that somebody was so kind, just dropped flowers off. That's what we do for each other here in the Thumb. We just do little acts of kindness randomly whenever you can.
One thing I wanted to talk about up in our area, we have a group called SKY, Simple Kindness for Youth. It was established by a group of people that wanted to help students in our local area. And we write mini grants up to about $150, I believe, to get things that our students need during the pandemic. It was Chromebooks. They've been doing it for years. I couldn't even tell you how long they've been around. It's a long time. But I have taken kids shopping for winter boots and jackets, prom outfits. I mean, you don't realize the impact of those types of things until the kids don't have them, something as simple as a calculator or graphing tools that they need for class that they're expected to get on their own that they can't. And you know, it seems silly. You can't afford $20. Not everybody has 20 extra dollars at home to buy a calculator. So being able to empower those kids and, you know, I ordered it from Amazon. It'll be here in 2 days. No big deal. And take care of that burden for them is wonderful. So I'm so thankful for Sky. Shout out to them. They do wonderful things for students in our community and they make a huge impact. I'm sure they don't even know how much it means to a lot of these kids. So they're getting to do things and have things they wouldn't have otherwise. So it's wonderful.
Tremendous. This has been tremendous. And, you know, and with this heavy cloud of bullying and all the other issues that we have to face in our day-to-days, you know, to hear these rays of kindness fighting through it's what keeps us going, and it's the power of this conference, the power of this panel, and I'm just so excited. I want to read this one message that we've received from Becky, and then I think we'll wrap it up and give it send this back over to Kevin. But Becky says, "Thank you for coming and having this honest conversation. It helps me know I am not alone. It has been the most impactful professional development I've had in years." So on behalf of all of us, I just want to say thank you to the panelists for joining in. We could go on for days. I mean, there's so much more to get into with regards to bullying, and that's why it's a community conversation. We've got to keep the conversation going. We know this is just the start. But I will say on behalf of everyone here, thank you. And Kevin, I think we're ready to turn this back over to you.
Thank you.
Great. I will also say thank you to all 6 of you for your input. So it is awesome that you tell people what they want to hear, you know, and that's a great thing, and good comments from everyone. Pam, thank you so much for leading that session.